Não esquece de desligar o YouTube.
Microfone, né?
Welcome, everyone. We are back for first Iberania 2024 pre-events, our second, with our invited speaker, Fabrício Bevenuto. Cristina will introduce him, but first, remember that Iberania 2024 will take place in Montevideo, Uruguay, on November 13th to 15th. We'll see you all there. Cristina?
Yes, I am really happy to introduce you to Fabrício Benevenuto. Thank you very much, Fabrício, for putting our presentation in your agenda. I know that you have been very disputed to do this kind of keynote. And I'm going to read his short bio that is very long. He's still young, but he has a very short bio, very interesting bio. But something that I want to call your attention is like he is a researcher that calls my attention because he can actually do research, bring the results, and change the society. And you're going to see that this is very important, especially when you're doing like for the social good. It's easy to do when you're doing some benefits for companies. It's very important, but it's easier, not easy, easier. But so Fabrício is a professor at the Computer Science Department of the Federal University at Minas Gerais. He obtained his thesis, his PhD in 2010 and won the CAPES Thesis Award. Fabrício is currently a CNPq scholarship for productivity and research. He also has like a work in the kind of political debate, and his work concerns the disinformation and how we can improve society fighting disinformation. So I will give Fabrício the floors. Thank you, Fabrício.
Thank you very much for this introduction, Cristina, and thanks for the invitation to give this talk here. So okay, let me first explain the context in which we started to work on we were trying to deploy real systems, right? I went through a sabbatical year in 2017 in Germany, in Max Planck, and sorry for my voice, it's a little, but I can give the talk, it's fine, it's still fine. So I was in 2017 trying to understand what happened in US. So basically during a sabbatical year, we were trying to understand what happened, and being from Brazil, and without I couldn't understand clearly how people were believing so much conspiracy theories and all that stuff, what was going on, right? And I was reading papers and trying to understand all those things, right? Just quick comment. So this, I will discuss here work that I've been done for more than 4 years. So there are many collaborators that helped here. And I will just mention them before starting because it may sound like I did everything, but it was, I have a lot of help here of good people. So what we were trying to do in 2017 on this thing of understanding what happened in US, I started with a student and we were trying we start for the first time, we're studying social networks for decades, since the beginning. But I never did an advertise on the social networks. It was the first time. So I was playing around this and trying to see how to make an advertising, how these things could be exploited by misinformation campaigns and so on. So just to clarify, if you never did an advertise, here's, I chose a city, which is my hometown. I chose the age of the people I want to target. I'm just playing around with a few features here. So I chose the gender. I chose things like high school, income level, religion, interest in religion, and so on. So Facebook gives to me, okay, there are 6,000 and half people with this profile, right? So we make a target, you target exactly those people. So we are doing this right now in our PhD program. We are targeting students with some advertise about, okay, come to do a master's, and it really works, right? It's effective for many things, and it's a pretty interesting tool. Imagine someone, I will tell the story of my friend who was trying to organize an event about beer, craft beer, and he was distributing these folders in the street, right? I said, this is not effective. Come on, you could just target people with interest in beer. Using this tool, it will be cheap and it will be much more effective. So that's how Facebook makes money, right? And how social networks make money, and they make a lot of money, right? If you get the amount of money they did last year, for example, if you get Google and Facebook together, so two companies, they make more money than the entire country, a few countries like small countries like Uruguay, for example. So doing, we started to reverse engineering this feature and see how it could be exploited, right? Our first thing that we learned from advertise, of course, here it's an interesting tool, but it can be exploited for misinformation campaigns, for many things. Our first effort, we tried to understand how many attributes and how many possible ways you can target people using the tool. So we started to gather these interests and all the kind of a snowball on these interests that it was showing to us, and we found that like thousands, hundreds of thousands of attributes that you can see. So it gave us an idea how you can slice and dice the data, the target, and choose a very specific population and tell them exactly what they need to hear. And that's how Cambridge Analytica and so on they were basically saying to the campaigns who to target with which equation here, which would be the equation you need to use in this API, and what to say, right? And then you kind of, okay, if I say something related to religion to these specific people, I can change their opinion, things like this, right? So we did a paper here on this space, basically showing that it gives a lot to the advertiser, right? It wouldn't even allow advertisers to make discrimination in online targeting. For example, you can advertise a job and do not show it to a specific kind of people based on race, based on age, based on interest in many things, in many sensitive topics, right? So we found things like you can target people that are addicted or have interest in same-sex relationship and things like this, right? So then after that, we were already understanding these things, and it came out that the Senate in US started to understand that Facebook received a lot of ads during the election 2016 that came from a Russian from the Russian intelligence. There's a few companies associated with the government from Russia. So it was an evidence of attempts of external interference in the US election, right? So the Senate in US made available those ads, and the ads came with the equation they use it, right? So with that, we could estimate the demographics of people they were targeting, things like this. And we did this paper gathering this kind of data. And first, we understood a lot from this because it was a real campaign targeting a country, trying to affect election. So I just noted three things that was very important. First, I put here 4 ads, real ads made by this Russian campaign. And you can see that they are trying to talk about conspiracy theories that, for example, Obama is from another religion and this kind of stuff, right? And putting associating candidates with Jesus is always to put the religion in the thing. There is a lot of ads that were about migration, and ads that were saying people to not believe in the media and so on, and kind of creating a new media. We saw these things happening in Brazil later. We saw the same kind of strategy being used, but with different contexts. So first, another thing that we noted is that the talks were not necessarily fake news. They were actually divisive. They talked about very divisive and important things for people, right? So so it's race, religion, things like that, right? And they were not necessarily saying, okay, here's a fake news about this candidate. It was not exactly like this. It was more intrinsic. It was kind of trying to engineer polarity, right? The second thing, the click-through rate, which is the basic metric that we use for measuring the effectiveness of an ad, it was 10 times higher than any ad in Facebook. And Facebook was the top market for this kind of thing. So it was 10 times than the average click rate on a Facebook post that you pay as an ad. So also ads, these ads were posted along 3 years. It was not a campaign that just started in one day and close to the election and it ends. No, it was something creating the polarization in people's mind, right? So after that, it was 2017 when we started to dig into this data, and in the beginning of 2018 maybe. But clearly something would happen in Brazil, because the election in Brazil was in 2018 and in the end of 2018, and there was a really complicated situation in terms of politics in Brazil, right? The president was impeached. We had many there was a space for misinformation campaigns, and there's all these things to take place. And I start to really worry about my country, and it sounded like this movie, Don't Look Up, right? In which the world is going to end, and the scientist was trying to tell people, and people do not believe that much. I was kind of seeing in advance what could happen in Brazil because I was studying those things. And at that point, that's why I came to deploy real systems. Because at that point, I could just wait something happen, start my data collection, and monitor a lot of things. And after the election, I could come up with algorithms and studies and things like, okay, this is how we could fix the problem that already happened in a controlled way, like researchers do, right, in the lab. Just working with controlled environments to test your hypothesis, right? But I said, okay, it's big. It's big. Something is, we need to do something. We know a lot. We should set up some system and kind of work towards really helping in the real world. So, okay. But the first thing that we did was basically to tell people, like the guy in Don't Look Up, right? Okay, I never wrote opinion articles, all these things, right? But at that point, I started to talk with two lawyers that I met it was a coincidence. I met these guys in Germany during this period I was there. And one was professor in Frankfurt, the other one professor in São Paulo. And I explained these things to them. And they said, yeah, there is a problem there, because in Brazil, you can do ads during a period campaign, and a campaign that appeared before the election, but the ads are on TV, on radio, and so on. And if some things happens in the ad that is problematic, so the political party can go to the justice, and the justice say, okay, this was problematic, so the other guy needs to pay you, or they need to give the same kind of space for you to give a reply. There's a bunch of things that they can do, right? But here you can make an ad to a very small group of people, and then there's not a way for this law to apply, right? More important, ads in Brazil, only the political party and the politician can do the ads. They cannot, companies cannot do ads in those periods. But with this kind of tool, people could just do, and there's no way to audit, right? That was the big problem. So we wrote this opinion article in a mainstream newspaper in Brazil, and it was very interesting because I think the collaboration with the two professors from law school was really important. I couldn't frame the arguments in the way they did, and we received attention immediately from politicians and people worried about this. I went to the Senate, I give this kind of talk, pointing out how there could be abuse and how the law should handle those things. And we started to push towards real solutions, right? So we we were saying that there should be transparency about ads. That's obvious, right? And we were pushing for this, for Facebook, for example, creating ads and share their ads. But we started a project in which we were collecting ads from volunteers, a kind of a data donation thing, right? We set up a tool, add-on on Chrome and Firefox, in which people install, and then they provide us the ads that appear in Facebook and also in all in Facebook and Instagram and these things. So there was this project already going on from a friend, Oana Goga, and I told her, Oana, we need to run these things in Brazil, get the ads and so on. And it was very interesting because kind of 2,000 people installed these add-ons here in Brazil. And we received a lot of data. We had an interesting people adopted the idea. They thought, okay, I can give data for these guys and allow them to provide transparency. And we were making this data public. We were sharing the ads that people shared with us, and of course, anonymized and all these things. We have some papers explaining this tool and how we gather the data and characterizing this kind of data as well. This is the reference. But let me explain exactly how it worked. So here's an ad that we gathered, right? So it's about a page. So it says, okay, this is the page. They just say, okay, who you can see who is the first box says who is the advertiser. The second one says when we received the ad, not exactly when it was running. It was running before, right? When we gathered the data, when someone that installed the plugin saw and sent to us, and then it's the content. It's just basically saying people to join. And there was also who was the target, and Facebook gives a very bad explanation, like, okay, you are seeing this because you are 18 and you are in Brazil, something like this. But actually, it's much more. People make target very specific things, and Facebook just explain very broadly. So, okay, we started pushing that this could be a solution, and Facebook was actually trying to create this kind of things, but it was not for Brazil. But after we started to call the attention of those things, many people start to understand that this was important for the Brazilian election, pushed Facebook as well, and Facebook ended up deploying the same kind of system we were doing. And in the entire world now, we have this ad libraries in all the social networks. But Facebook created this public data set of political ads, and they agreed with the Supreme Court in Brazil responsible for the election that anyone that wanted to do ads in Facebook, they had a date, in a specific date, they should say, okay, I will do ads. I'm a politician, I can do ads, and so on. And all their ads went to this data library. So in the right, we have a real ad here from a politician, and it says the number, kind of a social security number of who paid for the ad, right? And this was made public from Facebook. Fantastic, right? So we had a sample of people donating ads, and Facebook made available real world ads from real politicians. And the thing is, some misinformation campaign may not declare that they are going to do misinformation ads. So our tool was still important. And then we also crawled data from Facebook ads from this library they created. We had two data sets now. One data set that we received for donation and one data set that are real ads made by politicians. With that, we could see there was at least a few ads here in our data set that are political, right? And what are these ads about? So we made this paper and then this new system kind of pointing out that the importance of independently monitoring this kind of ads, and not only just trust the ads that are self-declared, because the misinformation campaigns might appear in this kind of other data, right? So yeah, that was basically our key contribution, mixing of things on our scientific side, and also putting system in the real world and pushing things through journalists. Okay, we also set up this same kind of system in the election in Brazil 2022. But what happened is that people did not use Facebook and Instagram and these things in a computer anymore. So everyone was using basically in cell phones. And to get in cell phones, we need to develop an app. It was much more complicated. We didn't. So a few dozens of people installed. Even after Sleeping Giants, for example, advertised the things for us, and even some news articles said that we have developed this, but people did not install it. People were not using anymore. So just asking, do you think the problem was solved with these libraries and so on? They are very welcome, but they were not solved. They do not fix the entire problem. A clear evidence is this experiment that a non-profit organization made. I'm not associated with them. It was something that they did, but they created ads from external source, from other countries, from Kenya and from England, and they, during the election period, very close to the election in Brazil, they were targeting indigenous tribes, saying that the election day has changed, saying that it's not the election. Just to make clear, they did not run the ads, but the ads passed through the moderation in Facebook, and they were ready to run. They could just run, right? They did not run the ad. But they were saying that the date of the election change, or vote in Brazil is not mandatory anymore, things like this, to very specific regions and so on. So can you see that the problems are still there, and if these things are happening, the transparency provided is still not sufficient. So Facebook has deployed more things now. They are identifying ads that are political and were not they are not self-declared, and putting in this library. But the algorithm they use is not open, so we don't know exactly what they are missing. What are the ads they are putting in the library, and what ads they are missing, which is the most important thing. So, anyways, there's a lot still to do in this space. So we were in Brazil. We saw what was going on, and we noticed that the key problem, ads were a problem, of course, but the key problem was happening inside WhatsApp. So as this project to fight misinformation, we said, okay, what can we do about this? How can we develop some system? How can we help the problem, to fix the problem in WhatsApp, right? So it was beginning of 2018. We still have some time before the election. So what we did, first of all, why WhatsApp was so important. If I gave a talk in Brazil recently. Basically, Cristina invited me to give this talk here for in this audience, and in the Brazilian audience, I asked who in this room did not use WhatsApp today. Nobody raised their hands, right? Basically, everyone used it. So it's something that everyone uses. People use all the time to chat, right? You don't pay basically for WhatsApp. Many data plans, in Brazil, they give WhatsApp and some social networks for free, right? It's the zero rating thing. It bias totally the use of some applications, because these are the cheapest data plans. People can, talk with everyone, send audio, send videos, and everyone without paying for data, without consuming the data source, right? And second, it's encrypted, and things spread viral, and it's impossible to know who started that. And there is some endorsement. If you receive some information, for example, if my mother receives an information from her sister, she will say, okay, my sister knows about those things. She would not send me fake news. I believe on what she said. but actually maybe her sister just received something and repassed it without looking too much, right? So this perception of endorsement is kind of tricky, and the environment helps a lot the misinformation to spread. So at the beginning of the election, we had evidences here. This was supposed to be a gift. It's not running. So we had evidences that Bolsonaro and his team were kind of orchestrating a way to flood WhatsApp with misinformation. This is a video of Bolsonaro showing many groups going fast in a cell phone. But here it's just a picture, but that's the idea here. Okay, so what we did, let's create something to monitor WhatsApp. But how? The data is encrypted, right? How we can do this kind of things. First, the data is encrypted only when it travels from one side to another, right? It's end-to-end encryption, but in cell phone it's not, right? So what we could do is the following: people, activists, they were sharing groups online in public spaces like Twitter, Google, Facebook, public pages, and sharing. Why don't you join WhatsApp and so on and so forth? And join this group in WhatsApp. This group is to support this candidate, or this group is for people who believe in this religion and don't want the other candidate to win. Things like this, they're associating things. And then we could just join public groups, right? We did this, and we created a few strategies to share some data here. Let me go more specifically. We joined this public group, so they have this keyword chat.whatsapp.com plus a keyword. We searched for a keyword associated to the context, Brazilian context. We joined at that time 350 public groups, and later in 2022 we expanded to 1,000. And basically, those groups, the definition we gave is the following. We would join any group that we could find in a public space indexed by a search engine like Twitter or Facebook or Google, right? We did not save anything that could identify people, although when you join a group, you can see the cell phone of everyone. We even did a paper showing that this could be an attack. You could just gather a lot of cell phone numbers, things like this, but this is a problem that WhatsApp was creating, right? But here, for this monitor, we were just anonymizing all the numbers, and we're not getting them. We never get the numbers. We just anonymized them. And we did this for more than 4 years. We covered this. I'll tell why. It was not just about one election, but the thing continues active, right? And we created this system that basically shows the most popular things in these groups monitored, right? It's a trend topic of WhatsApp. So a journalist told us that they don't want us to fact checking or to identify what is fake and so on. They just want to know what is viral, and then they can check if that's relevant or not, because that's the idea. A journalist will not fact check anything. That is a conspiracy theory that no one is talking about. Otherwise, they will give visibility to a conspiracy theory, right? It goes, for example, to a newspaper that everyone's read. A lot of people read, of course, or not everyone. But the point is, they cannot fact check things that people are not talking about, right? And that's what our system was showing. Okay, this is the most popular image of this entire week. So these guys could fact check that or not. They decide, right? So we gave access to the top fact check agents in Brazil, and in the end to more than 250 journalists. And there was dozens of news articles on the top of this explaining how WhatsApp was abused. So in the end, this system ended up helping everyone in Brazil to understand how WhatsApp was being abused, because there were so many lies inside those groups, and that the journalists were checking and so on. So it was quite useful. Just to say that it's a lot of work. You need to connecting the groups with cell phones, export the data to a database, process and group the data based on similarity or p-hash, and download videos, download images, put everything together and put them in WhatsApp Monitor. And WhatsApp changes a lot of things. We need to change our crawler. It's not an official API, right? So it was quite complicated to keep up this kind of project. So a few numbers, a few things we learned. For example, we gathered here for this study, we gathered WhatsApp groups. We are characterizing only what are the groups about. We not even join them. What are the things about? And actually, we joined it just to see how many users were there in each group. And then, for example, with a simple crawl of a few days, we were able to identify 55,000 cell phone numbers and group them based on interest. What are these people interested about, right? What are the public groups that we have found about? This is not only about politicians here. This data collection included anything. We noted many things related to sex, many things related to cryptocurrency or something, some sort of a scam. We end up finding that there is some gray area here where people are sharing a lot of things that cannot share in the exact public space, right? They invite people to join the private space in the public space, but then they do the wrong thing in this space, right? We even shared our data collection tools with a group of prosecutors in Brazil because they were quite interested with the police, basically in Brazil. They were interested in monitoring groups related to sex, thinking that, okay, maybe there's something more there, like child pornography or something like this, right? We just shared the tools, they run in their infrastructure because obviously we cannot run this kind of things in our data infrastructure. So what we have understood, I cherry-picked two news articles that came from our data, one from BBC, the other one from a fact-check agency called, a big fact-check agency in Brazil. So it's called Lupa. So the article on BBC, they say what happened in 1 week inside this monitoring tool. And basically, they point out interesting things that there are many misinformation that comes from audios and a lot of images, edited images, right? When you see the thing, it's very complicated, right? People tend to believe, right? So in the right, the news article from Lupa pick a few of these images. They fact-checked the top 50 images in this election period, which is a period close to the election. And we noted that the pictures, they were not about fake news about specific politicians. They are actually very divisive topics, like the Russian campaigns that we noted in ads in United States, right? So it was putting religion against progressive causes or feminist causes and these kind of things, right? Saying a bunch of terrible things that were actually lies and the pictures were out of context or something like this. What was impressive is that around 80% of the fact-check, the top pictures, they were actually fake or misleading. Sometimes edited images that are fake. We also learned that these groups were organized in some sort of a hierarchy, right, where the misinformation campaign send things to the administrators, and these administrators basically forward and flood other administrators and other groups, and so on and so forth. So this public space is like the first, the highest part in this hierarchy, and in the end, it reaches the private networks, and that's how you're receiving misinformation in family groups and groups of neighbors or groups of school of parents in the school, these kind of things, because then at a certain point people wanted to convince others in other groups and send things that they received from a public group. So that's how we could understand this connection. This graph here is basically show groups connected by same people in the same groups. I'm almost finished. So we tried to think, okay, how we could be in a system, a design of a system that could help to fix some part of these problems, right? First, one interesting measurement that we did was the following: we got information in our data that was fact-checked by fact-check agents, and then we tracked them to see if they were still being sent in those WhatsApp groups after it was debunked, right? And we noted that in our data, we had 40% of the shares were made after it was debunked. And in India, we collaborated with a friend that set up the same kind of monitoring system there. And we identified that 80% of the data was happening after it was debunked. I mean, there was the fact checking, but people don't care. They continue to spread. They maybe they don't even know that that thing was debunked, but they are sharing anyways, right? So the lie, the misinformation continues to be shared. We said, well, how can we fix this? Maybe, see, the data is encrypted while it goes from one place to another, but not in the cell phone, right? So maybe the cell phone could check, could for example access a database of hashes from fact check agents and say, okay, this content was already fact checked. And then display to the users, okay, you are about to forward something that was fact checked as fake, or something that you receive. You could just prompt something, say, okay, was fact checked, and it says it's a lie, something like this, right? And WhatsApp gave an interesting point here, saying that these things are not. If you do something like this, the user may and think that the communication was accessed by the fact check system, right? So they say that this is not in the DNA of the company, because they want to give this perception that you're encrypted, you're in a private environment, so on. Which is curious, because if it's a private, things can go viral. It doesn't. It's a paradox, right? You have a private communication that goes viral. Anyone can know about it in the end, right? But that was their answer. So we decided to explore this, right? We got this 88% of fake image, was a lot, right? And this thing that WhatsApp was saying that, so we said, okay, if they limit the virality, that would be a way to stop the misinformation. If they reduce the virality tools that they have, right? And then we were, okay, how can we express this to people? We had this data set of fact-checking images. We have a bunch of evidence that the thing was bad, right? But every time we talked about this, WhatsApp was basically answering that, okay, they have a limited data collection, which is not representative. And as researchers, we know this data is not representative, but we don't know what is the total in WhatsApp, because any data is provided. We know anything about WhatsApp, right? Nobody knows. So we decided to write a second opinion article in the project. And this was with Cristina Tardaglia from this Lupa, also with Pablo Talado, a researcher here in Brazil from São Paulo. And we wrote this opinion article saying that WhatsApp could reduce a lot the misinformation campaigns if they reduce virality features. That was basically what the article says. It was published in the front page of New York Times, and then WhatsApp kind of answered more properly after we did this. So 2 days later, they deleted 100,000 accounts in Brazil, and also that the accounts that they say, okay, they were sharing a lot of things in these public groups. I don't know exactly what the criteria. They just said, okay, we are suspicious accounts. They're deleting them. And also they created this link forwarding 1 month after this article, right? So also, for example, things that happened in Spain some months later, they already had a different approach, right? WhatsApp suspended accounts even before the election. In Brazil, they were not doing anything, and they changed the way they were acting in these kind of situations after this article. Okay, during the election, after the election in Brazil, I said, okay, done. The project now will stop. There's not too much to monitor. But we noted that the groups were still active, and there was a bunch of the misinformation campaign were kind of still orchestrating to discuss and support change that the government was doing, and so on and so forth. So one thing that happened is that the government made a huge slash the funds from University in Brazil, and immediately said, the Minister of Education said, oh, but the things that happen in this university in Brazil is a mess. They do a mess in the university. We should reduce the amount of money with them. That was basically what he said. But then in the WhatsApp groups, the thing got worse. It says that in the universities we do parties with naked people. I used to make a joke that I was never invited, so I was never invited if these things happen. But anyways, and it was totally lie. And they say that there was huge fields of marijuana in the universities, and people produce methamphetamine in the chemistry labs, and so on and so forth. They use the university for producing drugs. The student takes decades to finish their courses, and the university should be banned. It was an attack to science. It was an attack to researchers. I don't think people are recovered from this. The people have, when they talk to researchers or people that work in these top universities, they don't have the same respect after this campaign. We were the target here. So at this point, I kind of, okay, there's something big going on, attacks against university. I told people around this, and that this fact check agent just showed that the attacks to the university increased after the minister said those things. It increased 950%. So it was like, okay, after the minister said, in the next day, there was an orchestrated campaign happening, and they were good. They were saying a lot of, it was something prepared by professionals. You could clearly see. So during the pandemic, we had our just fact-checked by main news, TV news. They were playing the audios and asking experts to say, okay, is it true? And the experts were saying, no, this is not true. You can't believe on those kind of things sharing in your WhatsApp. And the data, we provided the data to these TV channels. They were to fact-checking it. So we also partnered with the Electoral Justice in Brazil in 2022, because then we developed a monitor for Telegram. Many groups were moving to Telegram because of possible banishing on WhatsApp, and what Telegram provides more virality tools. Some groups were moving there. We created this monitor. We partnered with the Electoral Justice to show what was happening. There was attacks, showed data to them related to attacks to the electoral process. That was their interest. We're still collaborating. We're still partners, although we are not collaborating right now because there is no election run. Okay, so many news articles happening in 2022. Again, now with data on Telegram. In 2022, the things has changed. It was not polarization, this engineering of polarization. The things were much more attacking the electoral process, kind of preparing people for some sort of disruption, which did not happen. But we saw the attacks happening in Brazil, similar to what happened in US in January, right? Okay, finishing. What's next? WhatsApp is now bringing all the virality features back again. They now have channels, and you can create groups of groups. You can send a message to a list of groups in one shot, right? So it increases virality in a lot of things. So as WhatsApp is competing with Telegram for users, so these virality features are back again, much more worse right now. And one point is that the Digital Services Act, which is very interesting in Europe, it was mostly designed for social networks and not too much for these message platforms like WhatsApp and Telegram. So I'm just worried that at a certain point, the campaigns in other countries might just migrate even more to this kind of space with more surveillance on the social media, right? And let's see. Basically, this is speculation. Okay, so that's it. The link for the project and my contact in case someone wants to do. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigada. Obrigada, Fabrício, sorry, I'm speaking Portuguese. Sorry about that. Thank you for the wonderful talk. You know, I knew more or less the content, and I'm impressed that you could, you know, do everything, but in a very in a condensed way. I have many people here that I want to thank also to attend to this online seminar. So I have Professor Francisco Garidio for the Complutense de Madrid, Professor Luis Correia from University of Lisbon, Professor Marcos Estelita, and Professor Carlos Eduardo from Unirio, that are where we are from, where we teach. You know, Fabricio, you always open lots of questions. I'm sure everybody wants to ask you, but since I'm the coordinator, I'm asking first. So I got very intrigued about the way that you are capturing the data. So when I look at the Ed Monitor, it reminds me like wiretapping. So I'm wondering if you had any problems with just anybody sued you? Do you have any issues concerning privacy? And my second question is like, wow, we do have elections here next year, and US also has elections there, and we both, Brazil and US, we suffer with lots of misinformation. So I hope you are doing something good to help us deal with that. And can you tell us about something about that?
Sure. Many thanks, Christina. So in the ads part, we were using a tool from a group in France, and basically we didn't had any issues gathering this data. Everything was anonymized and so on, right? And basically we're using the tools that they have created, and they have these IRBs, and the university allows kind of it's a bit different than here in Brazil. It seems that if we had some problems with justice, the university would buy the fight, right? They would defend them, and
Just like
that's
here.
yeah, that's not sure it happens if the university would. I'm not sure. So that there we had this it was even strategic. We were worried about these things, right? Imagine if, but the cost for the company, for Facebook and so on, to sue some researcher trying to bring transparency quite high, right? But it happened later in New York with researchers from New York with the same kind of data collection. So yeah, it is complicated. It's complicated. So I don't know exactly what they did differently, but it happened with researchers in New York like 1 year later. It's same kind of strategy, right? So for WhatsApp, we also partnered with people from Europe, from Max Planck and MIT, and they have this kind of IRBs that we would protect it, right? Basically, it was interesting that they understood, okay, the data is from a public group. There is sensitive data there. We are not getting the data. And this is a problem. It was interesting that they said, okay, this is a problem that WhatsApp created, right? Anyone could join that group. So from their perspective, there was no big deal. They just asked us to put in the for the users that join the group to have in their profile some metadata that says we are researchers, we are joining this group just to observe, or things like this, right? And that's basically that, right? And yeah, but so far so forth, no problems, big problems with the social networks, and justice and anything, right?
Okay, does somebody in the audience want to?
Quickly,
Yeah.
just about the U.S. election, your second question, right? So I see the U.S. election as a view from the future for Brazilians, right? Same kind of stretches that happened there end up being appearing here. So same kind of things, tied to the electoral process. So we're just watching and seeing what can be done. but I don't see. So in misinformation campaigns, we have this phrase that the artist goes where people are, right? So the misinformation campaigns go where online users are, right? If they are in WhatsApp, the misinformation campaign will be there. If they are in Facebook, if they are in TikTok, if they are every any social network, they will be there, and they have differences, and the attacks can be a bit different in each one of them, right? So we are not preparing at this moment a new system, but those that we already have, we plan to run them in next elections.
Thank you very much, Fabricio. I think at US, it could be you need to find somebody in the US to be a partner, because I think that what you are doing here, transfer to what they have there. Is there any question from the audience?
Yes, if I may, Christina.
Sure, go.
Good afternoon to all of you. Well, afternoon here, morning still in South America, I believe. And congratulations, Fabricio, for a very interesting talk. I think it's more than interesting. It's very actual, and it's very important that you got to be to have some exposition in media of high circulation, newspapers, etc., about your work. And I really, basically, I just wanted to encourage you. It's not a question actually, but it's to encourage you. And well, there is a question, yes, because I would like to encourage and to so that your work can continue, can grow, and can multiply itself with other research groups and in the society. And in this case, I basically wanted to ask you, how do you see the possibilities of having society, in particular governments in countries, taking initiatives? Because there are, it seems to me, very simple aspects that laws can pick on. Like, for instance, one issue that you raised. Why should a company that supports social networks advertise that a group communication is private, is encrypted, so it's part? Because it doesn't seem to me. It seems to me that the problem is not really the encryption or the protection by encryption, because only very high-tech attacks could do that. I think that the main problem is social leaks of information. And once you have three, there is a saying in English that three is a crowd. Actually, usually it's used in other contexts, but that's it. Once you have two people, then you have a point-to-point communication, and you can advertise it's encrypted. But the company should, for instance, be forbidden to advertise that, because people kind of are induced in believing that the information is encrypted, and of course there are leaks of information everywhere, and other initiatives which that I was very surprised that some of your work at a certain point made WhatsApp change their policy, but then they, in competition with other networks, they came back, etc. So I really wanted to ask, how do you see because we as researchers also have an important role in here, alerting people. And how do you see that we can better do that in governments all over the world to avoid this spreading of misinformation, etc. That is typical of social networks, by the way. So, sorry, the comment was a little bit long, but I was kind of moved by your work. Thank you.
Very interesting points. Thanks for the question and for the comments. It's so basically WhatsApp. What they did was to limit the forwarding to 5, no more. You cannot forward to more than 5 people at a moment, right? After that, they changed it again. He said it was not 5, but actually 5 hops away from the source, which is curious because they are tracking the source. So, right? Can you see? It's 5 hops in a graph. So if they label today, they label the message as forwarded many times. So this message was forwarded many times. When you receive a message that was labeled as forwarded many times, which means 5 hop from the source, you can just forward to one person. So they said this limits a lot virality and so on. That was their action, and now they increased the size of the groups. They allow you to create groups of groups, which are communities.
Yeah.
And they just brought back many virality features, right? So I just see that, okay, we are doing something, just to say we are doing something, and then they do another thing that kind of reverts, but they are not exactly they are just changing the features and changing the features. In the end, you have virality. You have a way to in one shot reach thousands of people with what you want, right? So that's it. And they have Telegram they have a fight for space with Telegram, right? So to fix the problem is not to expect that these companies will at a certain point say, okay, Telegram will do wrong things and they will win. I will not do this kind of things because of ethics or something. They're not going to do this, right? Then that's exactly the point where some regulation is needed. And regulating this space needs debate. Because it is a tool that could help. For example, if you are having some war, if you are having some terrible government, I don't know, doing something, I would like to communicate in a private group. This could be useful for the other, right? For the other side, if you are being tight or something, I don't know. It needs discussion, right? But I think it needs some discussion on how to regulate this kind of space.
Well, thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I think I can make a question. Can I?
Yes, please do, Marcos.
Okay, good. Well, my areas of research are problem structure methods and theory of mind, in the sense of how we theorize about the other's mind, and you do this all the time. You just are not aware of that. So I would like to know about how do you characterize or do you understand the minds of the people who practice the fake news and conspirational theory? If the attributes that you proposed, 1,100 attributes, regard or specify some of these variables. I mean, these variables could be the beliefs, desires, personality traits, emotions, and in particular, I would suggest, the attitudes of these people. Yeah, if they are respectful towards science and toward public policy. And also, I've seen you specified politics, parties, I understand, but not public policy, because these people maybe are not interested in public policy. And how the rationality of these people are very simple, are more complex in explaining the position, their opinions and positions. So the question regards understanding the people who practice these fake news and conspirational theories.
Yeah. So it seems to me, after these years seeing part of this content, right? But by the way, we were basically giving data to journalists. They were fact checking and so on. We never did a very strong work on what is the content inside those groups. we did a few times here. We explored this kind of data for research in many situations. For example, about conspiracy theory, especially, we were looking to this conspiracy theory that comes from US, the QAnon, right? And in some sense, it says that there is a group of important, rich people that basically governs the society, and they are all pedophiles, and they uh, kind of want to put progressive causes in this in different places and destroy family and so on, things like this. This theory, it was we saw this kind of things happening in Brazil, right? We can clearly see immediately that people are attacked as, oh, this guy is a pedophile or something like this. We saw this happening, for example, with Felipe Neto and so on. We saw the same kind of theory. They're drinking from the same place, right? And they are anti-science and so on. These things are completely connected as far as we understood, and they get a bit different in different countries, right? So let me pick another example. Part of this theory in Germany, they're saying that Angela Merkel was a lost daughter of Hitler, and they're trying to this kind of stuff, right? So which could be done only in German, right? But connecting the thing on the QAnon, and a certain day, everything will change, and this day is arriving, and so on. At a certain point, people believe that the January 8th in United States, that was the day. And in Brazil, they were believing that the January 6th, in which happened in Brazil, similar to US, that was the date. The things are going to happen now, right? So that's part of the how these conspiracy theories, they get regionalized in the different place. But by the end of the day, this is just people without any moral or without any ethics trying to manipulate people, create polarization, win election, take the power, things like this, right? The motivation is basically politics and take power. That's my perception. Part of these things is just a lot of speculation. Some of those things we actually noted from the data and so on.
Yeah, politics is everywhere, right? And unfortunately, what's happening now is not new, right, Fabrice? It's just the social media is making it bigger and faster, but this is not, unfortunately, not new. Do we have more questions? So I have a last one.
Hi,
Carlos. Yes, do you have a question?
Sorry, I have.
Okay, so.
Yes, hi Fabrizio, and congratulations for your talk. And during your talk, I was wondering about fake news. And fake news is definitely not a novelty in the world. Yeah. But the way now we are spreading fake news is something new. Okay. And thinking about it, I thought that fake news or misinformation prevails in fertile terrains. Okay, so it's very tough to try to detect fake news and try to put it off in some way or out of the networks or anywhere. But even this way, it's not the best way to fight against, because most of the misinformation we have spreading here, despite we take it and put it offline, many people still thinking that's true, and that's something with some ground truth, I would say. And so said that, one hole that the recommender systems have in this context is try to not offer the fertile terrain for fake news, and because the work of spreading misinformation starts with very simple information and some sort of information that's not straightforward connected to a huge fake news. It's because people does not just wake up and start to believe that the globe is plane, okay, and there is several small or very little misinformation that begun in past in a very steady and slow way, and one that it's a very steady work that at the end people start to believe that the Earth is plane or something like this. And I would like to hear from you. What do you, if you believe in this hypothesis that I'm discussing here, and if there will be a better way to fight against fake news, which would be different of trying to detect it and to take it off from the networks. Got it, my point?
Yep.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. Thanks a lot for the two questions. I think I agree with the hypothesis. See, if we notice the first papers that came out, like with the Russian campaign and the misinformation campaign in Brazil, they show that those campaigns we identified with misinformation, so on, they have some sort of a goal, which was creating engineering polarization. They were talking about very sensitive topics, right? Racism or migration, things that or sexual orientation, things that define people. And when you see something saying that, for example, this guy is entering a church and did this with the church, immediately you get one side hating the other, right? So at a certain point, this thing becomes so important to people. They're feeling that the misinformation or that kind of content is affecting them that much that they are vulnerable, much more vulnerable to get radicalized, right? So, and that's how they start to see more content. The algorithms keep giving them more related content, and related content, they keep buying more those theories. And I think the ultimate thing they can do is to join a public group of random people that are also had enough, right, or something, and they are there completely radicalized. That groups, the worst happens, right? They receive the worst kind of content, the more radical stuff, and so on. So that's what we're observing was that the extremists were there. Some people are real activists. They don't care if the content is true or not. They were just sharing everything that arrives there because it helps the candidate, right? Or that's how things happen. They get radicalized, right? So and sometimes it may take slow. Sometimes the guy already had a lot of misconceptions or a lot of some of the radical ideas. They just buy everything, and it works also as a support group, right? We saw. I would expect, for example, people feeling about loneliness. They're lonely at home or something like this. They saw in the group a bunch of people that think similarly. So they were not there to post something that, oh, what you're saying is a fake news. They want to be part of those guys, right? They want to be part of the group and so on. So, and that's how it happens, right? So, okay, about the fight and detection, right? I think, as we point out here, detecting is something that could be helpful in different places. For example, imagine a social network that automatically detect with 100% of sure that something is fake. It could remove automatically from the social network or something like this, or flag or reduce visibility and so on, right? And or those kinds of things that they say, okay, definitely this is not fake, right? So it is something that appears in the mainstream newspaper or something that it's not fake. But this gray area, we are going to moderation. So that's why automatic detection could be helpful, on my view, but not deployed in real practice. And but the thing is, misinformation is just part of the problem. Hate speech is just part of the problem, right? Those conspiracies, this engineer of polarization, these things. Sometimes they use of fake news, sometimes not. Sometimes the politicians make say something that clearly it's a real sentence, something that the guy is saying. The guy is saying something absurd, so they just share the video. That's not fake, right? Uh, Sometimes it's just a speculation of the future. How can you check something that is a speculation of the thing? It didn't happen. There's no way to say, okay, this is a lie. No, or it's an opinion. And the truth is, people do not differentiate too much the opinion of someone. There are just opinion guys, or for example, opinion articles, like the one I wrote on New York Times. It's opinion article, right? Uh, we have some data, we have some numbers that could someone could say, oh, this is fake, right? But the opinion, I was saying that limiting virality can reduce misinformation, right? People can say you are lying, but it's an opinion, right? You may disagree of that, but I'm not lying. I'm really believe on these things, and you cannot fact check an opinion, right? So that's how the problem is much more complex than simply detect. We are working on this space. I have students trying to automatically detect hate speech and misinformation, but I think the big picture is really important to come up with public policy or big changes.
Thank you, Fabricio. I need to move on and just ask Laura if we have any questions from the extended audience. Do we?
We do. Questions from YouTube. We have 2 questions, but I don't think we have time to answer all of them.
Combined.
Now they are like different. So the first one here, maybe Fabricio can then go to YouTube and ask the questions, answer the questions. How does your data scraping process comply with international privacy regulations, such as GDPR in Europe, particularly when users have not consented to their data being collected?
Yeah, so this passed in IRBs in Europe, right? So let's say this passed in ethics committees in Europe, and what the point is, the groups are public. Anyone can join them and get the data by the end of the day, right? We are not getting anything that is identify the users. We are anonymizing in the data collection, so it reduces a lot the problem, right? And we are basically analyzing what is the most popular content. So this is basically a proxy for what is already, let's say, in the public, right? That was being shared many times. So that's how basically the main idea here is this one, right? We talked. I was in this weekend in a conference in the United States, and I discussed with this Indian guy who Kiran Garimella, who helped us with the Indian data, and he's trying to set up some other strategies. But by the end of the day, to gather this kind of data, we need to enter in the groups, and it's not if you ask permission for all the users in the group, the research is compromised, right? And by the end of the day, the group was anyone could join and get the data. So there is this notion of public group, and that's what we exploited to get it. But by the end of the day, WhatsApp is the one allowing this kind of things, right? Creating public links. They are exposing the users, let's say, right? Not us. WhatsApp is actually allowing anyone to join the groups and get the cell phones. We are actually joining the group. We are not getting any private information, and we are trying to point out that this is dangerous. And that's the point. That's the way. Let's say the benefits kind of are higher than the risks, right?
Okay. Please.
One more question. It's a short one, I think.
Okay, one more question from the audience then. Or
okay, go ahead, and then we can finish.
So, what were your main challenges in classifying content extracted from WhatsApp and Telegram as fake?
Oh, that was easy. We just shared it with real-world fact-check agencies, and they told us. We shared the most popular content with them, and they said, okay, this is fake, this is not, and so on. And it's not that simple. They actually write a small story and say, okay, this picture is fake because the first time it appears in the web was in this event, and the event has nothing related with the situation and so on and so forth, right? So, for example, that case in the universities with naked people inside universities. That sounds like picture of naked people inside universities, right? And they're saying that it was parties or something like this. But okay, this was a protest in Switzerland, in Sweden, I don't know. And they got the picture and said it was a university in Brazil, right? So they were trying to identify where the pictures are. And there's this tool from Google that allows you to search exactly where that picture appeared in the public space. And that's how they were. Anyways, I'm just saying that we did not try to do their work. We partnered. We were, let's say, providing, collaborate with journalists.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think that we have to see Fabricio such, powerful talk that made raise many questions for all over, because it's very recent, it's very up to date with what we are living with. And misinformation, disinformation, fake news, they are all hate speech, they are all come to screw our democracy. So let's now talk about our next speaker. So our next speaker is Dr. Vilma Toledo. She is going to talk about regulation of AI, the ethical and lawful dilemmas. So it's going to be August 27th at 10:30 a.m. So this is Brazilian time. So I hope you can adjust and attend our next speaker. And Dr. Vilma Toledo is going to talk to us. So also remind you about our Iberamia. We hope to see all of you there November 13th to 15th and in Uruguay. So see you soon and see you in August with Vilma Toledo.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Deus, obrigado.